Hey friends, my name is Becky Truda, and on this channel I like to talk about decluttering, minimizing, and living your best life. This video is going to be about really how do you live your best life. And I really got the ideas that I'm about to tell you from a woman called Elizabeth DeLumba. And she posed the question on a TED Talk I watched recently. And her question was, are your things stopping you? Now during her TED Talk, she talked a lot about how she had found a note she had written herself years before. She had kids, a big house, a ton of stuff, and on it she had written her dreams. And some of her dreams were to learn another language, to move abroad, to earn her master's, and to volunteer. There was a couple of more, but those are the big hitters. And as she's looking at this, she realized that really the only thing she was doing from her list of dreams from about, 15 to 20 years before was volunteering. And after talking to her husband about them, her husband posed the question, well, why don't you go back and get your master's abroad? Why don't we sell everything and move? Now that's certainly something I don't think my husband would have jumped to, but she really had to debate. She had a house, a beautiful house full of things. And so she had just, accumulated tons of stuff. I mean, she had, I think, probably like a 3,000 square foot house by looking at the picture. And how many things does that have? She said, there was like 50 places just for her to sit down in her house. And she's like, well, how do I even do this? How do I make this change? So instead of her just being crippled by how do I make this change, the first step she did was she started to apply to colleges, and she applied to one mainly and she got in Edinburgh. And then what she did was she had an estate sale, and she said that she was selling like almost everything and just realizing how little these things that she thought were so precious really meant to her when it came to having to take them with her. So she had a suitcase, her husband had a suitcase, and she said that she had put a bunch of stuff aside, that she was like, we're gonna keep this stuff. We don't know if we're gonna come back here or not, but we don't wanna get rid of it yet. We're not ready. And who knows, what if it doesn't work out and we just wanna come home? So we're gonna put all this stuff in a storage unit and sell everything else. And as she said, she's walking around, labeling everything, pricing everything out for this sale. She slowly starts going by this big pile of things. And as she's going by the pile, she's thinking about, she's like, well, this lamp is gonna cost me, a tour through my new city. Or the bed frame is gonna cost me a trip outside the city with my husband to a romantic location. And I think when you start putting your items you have in your house with the monetary value that you had to work, keep clean, and you had to store them, you start to see things differently. One of the things I have been telling myself and trying to remind myself is that I am not a person who loves things. I love experiences. But as I was listening to her talking and telling her stories, it really hit home why 7 years ago, when I first got the taste of what minimalism was, before I even knew what it was called or what people, did as minimalists or why it was important or anything, before I knew anything about it, I got the taste of it when we went to Europe. My husband and I, we didn't have any kids. We didn't even own a house yet, and we saved as much money as we could on our 2 jobs, and we took off a month and went to Europe. Now, during this Europe trip, we had decided that we were only going to take these 2 book bags because we did not want anything rolling. We knew we had to walk between trains, planes, automobiles, everything in between, and we didn't want to be lugging anything behind us. As I was traveling through Europe, every stop we would get several things, like you got to get your trinkets, right? As you're going through, and I realized that every stop, by the time I got to Paris, which was our last stop at the end of the month, my book bag was so heavy that I could barely walk. I had to lean forward. Carrying my stuff became this massive burden to me. And of course, you know, we got locked out of our last Airbnb. We had to sit outside in the hot sun, and carrying all those things became a massive burden. And from that lesson of going through Europe, starting with complete freedom, a very light book bag with only the things that I really needed, and ending up in Paris with a very heavy book bag and a lot of stress. It's the only place that my husband and I will honestly say that we got in a very big fight, which, I mean, 30 days together in very small places, that probably didn't help, but just the stress of carrying all those things with me, it became such a burden that I really can reflect on that in my own life now. You know, the more things that we accumulate, the less ability we have to change, the less ability we have to change what we want to do, where we want to go, and we can't pivot anymore when crisis happens. So the question I'm posing to you again is, are your things stopping you? What are those goals that you have in your life that you don't feel like you can accomplish because you feel like there is this wall of stuff, whether it is emotional clutter, whether you're angry with somebody and you feel like you can't forgive them, whether it is that job, which I definitely had one I hated. Do you feel like you can't move on and get another job? Do you feel like you can't go back to school because you have all this stuff to pay for? Or is it just what you have in your house is too much and you feel like you can't move and go somewhere else if you wanted to and pick up your things and change? So I just want to inspire you to think about getting rid of those things that are stopping you in your life from being able to pivot anytime something special might come your way. So if you've enjoyed this content and this story, I hope you come and hang out next week, and remember to subscribe.